Hi students, my name is Sunana. Welcome to learning the subject of social science. Today we will be learning Unit 4, Global Problems and India's Role. It's the fourth unit of political science in your social studies textbook. Students, like we always study what are the topics before we start learning the chapter. Let's look at it. We will learn about how human rights are denied, and it's such a problem at the global level. We will learn about arms race, and we will also learn about economic inequality. Students, the world war has come to an end. So the problems of imperialism, colonialism, these have ended. Now there is no race. British, France, they don't want to rule all over the world. There are no colonies. Most of the countries have become independent. So there are no these problems of imperialism and colonialism. But there are new problems now. And what are these new problems? Let us look at them. There is inequality. There's apartheid. Apartheid is racial discrimination between black and white people. There's terrorism. There are the problems of human rights. There's arms race and so on. So India was a member of the world community by participating in the United Nations organization. And India has participated in solving these global problems. Now we will look at these problems one by one. The first one is human rights. What is the meaning of human rights? We are human beings. We must have the freedom of belief, freedom to live the way we want to live, freedom of expression, and so on. So humanists have advocated that every human being should get their rights. So who are these people who believe in human rights? Humanists. Unfortunately, these human rights are not given to a lot of people. Why? There is discrimination on the basis of gender, that you're male and you're female. There's discrimination on the basis of the color of the skin. You are black, you are white. And there's also difference based on nationality. Oh, you're an Indian. Oh, you're an American. And there are so many other differences. And so rights, the basic rights are denied to people. The American War of Independence in 1776, the French Revolution in 1789, the Russian Revolution in 1917, and the freedom struggle of India, all of these happened because of human rights. They were not given the most basic human rights. So after all of these struggles, the cause of human rights became very strong. So there was a declaration, a universal declaration of human rights was signed between almost all the countries in the world. This declaration was prepared by experts and it was agreed upon by the member countries and was adopted in the United Nations General Body meeting on December 10th, 1948. This day is also celebrated as the World Human Rights Day. The General Assembly has mandated the member countries to adopt. They wrote a declaration that we will give our citizens right to live, right to freedom of expression, and so many other rights that relate to basic human rights. So all these countries who signed this declaration at this General Assembly, they promised to adapt whatever values were written in this declaration and to protect the human rights of their citizens in their country. So in order to facilitate, in order to support better implementation of human rights, the United Nations organization has given guidelines along with Human Rights Declaration. What are these guidelines? How should you follow as a country so that the rights of citizens are ensured? Example, they have said every individual has the right to live with freedom, with dignity and equality once he is born as an individual. It also calls that you should eradicate slavery. Slavery should not be practiced in any form, and there should be no gender-based exploitation of women. India has been advocating Universal Declaration of Human Rights from the very beginning. in the Constitution of India as well, from Article 12 to 35, Part 3 of the Constitution, fundamental rights are discussed, which are very similar to the Human Rights Declaration. So students, do you think apart from having a part in the Constitution called fundamental rights, has India done anything to solve the problem of human rights? Let us look at it. India has been advocating for better human right implementation in all the meetings of United Nations Organization. So it's just not concerned about the Indians in the country. It's also concerned about the global human rights situation, and in all the meetings it has at the UNO, it talks in support for human rights. United Nations Organization had a conference, a meeting where all the countries sent its representatives. The conference's theme was human rights violation in the year 1966. It asked for the commitment of all the members who were present for compulsory implementation of human rights. So earlier students, they just signed the declaration, but now they made it compulsory. So they formed an institution called the International Human Rights Commission to monitor the implementation of human rights. On a similar lines in India, we formed National Human Rights Commission. This National Commission for Human Rights was made along with National Commission for Scheduled Castes, National Commission for Scheduled Tribes, National Women's Commission, National Backward Classes Commission. All of them were formed because India as a country saw that these are the various classes of people to whom human rights was denied. So for better implementation, it made all of these commissions. At a state level, India has also made the State Commission for Human Rights. Even the State Commission for Human Rights can be found in Karnataka. Students, we studied about how human rights was a global problem, how we took a journey from just signing a declaration to actually having an institution that takes care that whether human rights are implemented or not. Now we will look at the next global problem, arms race. What is the meaning of arms race? All countries are competing. Oh, I have this many weapons. Let's say India is competing with Pakistan. I have 100 weapons, and then Pakistan says I have 150 weapons. Or Russia and USA are fighting this competition where Russia goes like, I have 20 missiles. So US will be like, no, I'm going to see to it I buy 25 missiles. Do you think this competition makes sense? So there's a saying, because now we have nuclear weapons as well. In this time of nuclear weapons, so in the nuclear epoch, we say, either we have to end war or war will end all of us. This is a very popular saying. It captures how there is a competition for weapons or arms. Disarmament. Disarmament means stop this competition for arms. Keep weapons, but only for basic national defense, not like for a competition to see who has more weapons. So disarmament is the present as well as the future need of humanity. Disarmament is the only solution to the arms race. It's the direct process available to bring down the number of arms and the elimination of certain arms that are very harmful, like landmines and so on. Why? Why is there a race for arms? There is insecurity, fear, instability and threat of war appear due to the arms competition. In order to keep all these evils away, what is the best solution? Disarmament is the best solution. It is believed that money is wasted on arms and ammunition. Imagine the kind of money spent on buying weapons. It can be used to bring poverty alleviation programs, to provide food for so many people who are hungry and homeless. So much development can be achieved. So Hoover, the President of United States of America, he once said, the world which has arms not only wastes the money, it also wastes the sweat of laborers, intelligence of scientists, and wastes the dreams of the children. Imagine if scientists are wasting their time in finding what is the best weapon they can make. Instead, they can find cure for diseases like cancer and make this world such a better and happier place. Our ex-president Abdul Kalam was one such scientist. He invented a stent. Stent is, let's say you have a blockage in the heart. So they put a stent to open the blockage. He found a stent that was very cheap. So it brought down the cost of heart surgery from lakhs to just a few thousands. Imagine how many lives he saved. So even President Roosevelt says similarly that if these scientists could use their expertise not to make weapons, but to actually make mankind a better place, it would be so good. With the preparation of nuclear weapons and bombs, the issue of disarmament has become a serious issue in the present world. India is a peace-loving country. So do you think we will support arms race? No, India doesn't support the arms race. After 1963, USA and USSR have entered into many bilateral agreements and they have committed that we also won't do arms race. Partial test ban treaty. What is the meaning of partial test ban treaty? There are a lot of tests they do to see if nuclear weapons are working or not. It harms the environment very greatly. So there's a treaty that says whichever country signs it, they commit to not test these weapons. Comprehensive nuclear test ban treaty, strategic arms limitations, talks are some of the agreements entered by both the countries. These can be considered as the major meeting points of agreement for the world. Even India and other countries need to find a way out of definitive destruction starting at humanity. As we are all peace-loving countries, we must find a way out of having arms or having any kind of arms race. Now let's discuss the next problem, economic inequality. Inequality on the basis of rich, poor, upper class, middle class, lower class and so on. Why there is income that is there in hands of so few? Why are there so many poor people? How is India a country trying to solve this problem for the entire world and itself? Let's look at it. Among the members of the world, economic inequality is a major problem. It is there since the time of colonialism. In fact, you can say it's the gift of colonialism. So the countries that were colonies kept becoming poorer, whereas the home country or the mother country kept on becoming more and more richer and developed. So European countries, they established colonies where in Africa, in Asia and Latin America. These countries that were under the control of the imperialistic powers, they suffered from lack of development and they had a lot of backwardness. Their progress was very slow till when they got freedom until 20th century. After attaining independence, many Asian and African countries, they wanted to achieve development, but they had a lot of hurdles. They didn't have the best of science and technology. They didn't have the best ways to do agriculture. They didn't have the most advanced means of transportation, the most skilled educational institutions and healthcare facilities and so on to achieve development. So they had to depend, who they had to depend on? They had to depend on foreign aid to achieve development. After 1945, USA and USSR started helping developing countries based on which bloc. So if somebody belonged to the bloc of USA, USA would help those countries. If somebody belonged to the bloc of USSR, USSR would help those countries. These developed countries started playing politics in the name of helping these developing countries struck by poverty. USA would go to countries like, you give us support, join our bloc and we will help you with aid to help you overcome poverty. USSR would do the same to several other countries. But what was the policy of India? India had the non-alignment policy. We did not want to be with USA, nor did we want to be with USSR. We wanted to maintain equal friendship between both these superpowers. India insisted, it made a point by emphasizing that if you are a developed country, doesn't matter which bloc, you should help the developing countries unconditionally. This helped the poor nations to maintain their self-respect and grow at the same time. It tried to channel monetary help to the third world countries. The word, what is this third world? Third world denotes poverty and non-developed countries of the world. These countries were trying to come out of the shortages of food, shortage of healthcare facilities, education and many other problems. But in developed countries, there is excessive spending. There is also globalization that is leading to a lot of problems to the developing countries. For example, they set up factories without keeping in mind a lot of standards of pollution. Like there are some things that should not be emitted into the environment openly or into the rivers as industrial waste. But international companies, when they come and set themselves up in India, they don't take care of these environmental standards. So there are pollution of various kinds that are happening, not just in India, in many other countries of the world as well. So the developed countries need to think and act responsibly towards developing countries. They are acting in a way that is not supportive. India is a progressive nation. It is striving to promote economic equality among all the nations of the world. Now let's begin with the backside question answers. Question 1. When is the Human Rights Day celebrated? It's celebrated on 10th of December. Human rights involves dash equality, right to equality. What were the major problems that emerged after the World War II? The main problems the world faced after the World War II was human rights, arms race, economic equality, racism, terrorism, etc. Explain the struggle led by India for the implementation of human rights. Human activists throughout history have upheld birthright of human beings. On 10 December, the UNO declared the human rights. It made a declaration of human rights on 10 December 1948. It was a turning point because there were a lot of denial of human rights. Our nation has always championed the cause of universal human rights. India provided for fundamental rights in the Constitution. Even in the UN General Assembly, India has always upheld the cause of basic rights of all beings all over the world. What are the major steps taken up by India to eradicate economic inequality? Answer. In the later stage, India continued with its non-alignment. India insisted that developed countries should provide assistance to developing countries. This helped the poor nations to protect their self-respect. It tried to channel the monetary help to the third world countries. What is the meaning of the word third world? Third world denotes poverty and non-developed countries. These countries are trying to come out of shortages of food, health, education and many other issues. Meanwhile, in developed countries, they have excessive spending, open economy and globalization, which is taxing the poor nations with increasing pollution and inability to manage the increasing problems. Students, this brings us to the end of the chapter, the global problems and the role India is playing in helping solve these problems. A very short chapter, just 3 problems. I hope you all will spend very little time and be perfect with all concepts in it. Okay students, see you until then.